So what I'll do is I'll give you just another quick intro in about a minute.
Okay.
I've got the 10, 5, and 2 minute signs.
And that's it.
Okay, we're going to get going here. Again, this is the Malware Analysis 101 talk, Noob to Ninja in 60 minutes with Grecs. And personally, I've been looking forward to this talk because I'm definitely a newbie in this area. So I'm going to pay attention to this. And it's good to see we got a nice crowd in here. So you guys having fun so far? All right, good. Don't burn out. We got a long week ahead.
All right. Can I take this off, or what have people been doing it, really? This is good, man. It's like perfect cup holders up here. I got one for the drink, it fits nicely, and then one for the beer. Of course, yeah, it's not good to do that sort of stuff. Anyway, 5 years. Who has been to B-Sides all 5 years? Raise your hand. One. Wow. Okay, so we have 2, 3 folks. What about 4 years? Okay. 1, 2. What about 3 years? This is me. This is my 3rd year. I unfortunately missed the first year because, like, no one knew about it, but but I would have been there had I known about it. And then 1 year, my company finally paid for me to go to Black Hat, but I think that was a mistake, but anyway, so I just want to, this is just awesome that this has grown from this organization has grown from being just this small little get-together to this big event that's year over year, and it all started here. And it's all over the world now. I mean, there are cons. I love it. I go to B-Sides all over the East Coast. I even went to one on the West Coast, too. Just awesome. I love the small community. Just great event. So I just wanted to say thank you to B-Sides for continuing to put on these awesome conferences. So now what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is just doing some basic malware analysis. The environment that I'm in now, we have analysts that basically watch events pop up, and then they look at those things and they decide, is this a true positive? Is it a false positive? Whatever. And it's a pretty boring job, shift work. But what I see a lot of is kind of your second-tier team. And then even beyond that, there's specialists doing malware analysis. There's a lot of people at that first line that I think their jobs could be a lot more exciting if we would give them more to do than just like watch this dashboard and look through events. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is, provide that first line of defense that we have in our security operations centers with just a little bit more knowledge, so that they can take their skills to the next level, so that they can do just a little bit more thorough of an analysis. And so that's what this talk is geared towards. Somebody that really hasn't done malware analysis previously, and this is the talk that I try to push. It's going to be just the overall how to get started, and then the second of all, where to learn more. Because even though it's within 60 minutes, right, if you notice there's a little asterisk there, and then the little thing, most listeners do not become ninjas in 60 minutes. But so the goal here is to, give you the resources so that you can go take your skills to the next step. And then I know a lot of folks that start out doing analysis work, and then they start doing a little bit of malware analysis, and then from that they get into reverse engineering and then forensics. And so this could be kind of the first step of helping, folks that are new to the security world, taking their skills to the next level. All right. So disclaimer, opinions here do not express the views or opinions of my employers, customers, wife, kids, parents, in-laws, my girlfriend in high school, who's on the right there. I wish, right? So if you see me, this is me on Twitter, just a little tic-tac-toe board thing. Does anybody know where that's from? War games, right? All right. Do you know how hard it was to get right to that moment when all the little things were set up like that? Anyway. All right, so I'm from the Metro DC area. Anybody, any Nova hackers here? Any just people from the Metro DC area? Cool, good to see you guys here. So a long time ago, in a land far, far away, I started doing security work, and I basically cut my teeth doing web app sec. So was just love the job. There was a lot of cool stuff going on. I was around when I think like SQL injection was invented. That's when it first came out. So, and although one could argue that it's always sort of been there, but whenever it started to get big, probably like the late 2000s. Unfortunately, so I had this awesome job, but in doing like this very technical work, you kind of limit your career at that time. So I moved on. And I started doing security engineering stuff. And so that was fun. I was producing a large amount of documentation. We would basically go and we would create lots of documents of how to build stuff, and then somebody else would go build it. But it's a necessary evil. Then my life kind of got worse because they found out that I was good at like writing, and then they're like, oh, hey, you can do this, right? Right, and then it just sank to a new level. I was really screwed. Because here, they made me lie. That's what I hated about it, okay? So I was producing lots of this, there was all this great stuff going on, and I was just producing paper, right? So I was like, maybe wanted to do that. I thought a little bit. And so then I got, I don't know, probably a few years back, I basically said, hey, I want to do more hands-on stuff. I want to do more cool stuff. So I started getting into trade studies, and this is where I had to deal with vendors day in and day out, trying to deal with them. Love vendors, though. Great. Thank you for sponsoring B-Sides. So then what I've been doing the past few years is just IT security training. And so this is a job that I love. Customers that we're mainly focusing on are basically in Security Operations Center and trying to bring new analysts in and get them spun up as fast as possible. And also doing some of the more advanced training, as is an example, malware analysis, so that to help them take their careers to the next level. So I'm still producing some of this. I drink better versions of this. I do, so in the evening when I have time, I like to do hands-on hacking, or not really hands-on, but it's more or less like, hey, I'm reading the news, something comes out on Twitter, and it's like, hey, new tool, bam, and it's like, all right, so I'm going to try that out. So I basically do stuff like that, and I basically try to follow the news and write thoughts and opinions, which I try to focus on this site, which has been around for about, I don't know, it started in 2008, so it's been around for a while. I put out like a few posts a week, so that's kind of fun. A lot of you may know me from ShmooCon, did the Fire Talks. Has anyone here been to ShmooCon? Okay, wow, okay, good number of folks. Anyway, so one of the events there is a Fire Talks, and I run that each year, so that's a great job, fun con. So right now I'm a happy panda. All right, so enough about me. So what we're gonna do next is really talk about what you all came here for, which is just basically how are we gonna do this whole malware analysis thing. So just a little intro, just to give you some background for those that really don't that are very new to this. Talk about the environment that you need to do this in. Talk about the methodology, and then lastly is where to learn more. So there's a lot of great sites out there where for minimal cost or for low cost, you can definitely take your skills to the next level. All right, so kind of in the beginning of the talk, I kind of addressed this, but the audience for this particular talk is general security practitioners that are interested in getting started in malware analysis. So you definitely have to have at least some InfoSec type background, or like I was talking about, security analysts that are looking to expand their careers in the job that they're currently in. And obviously, this big red thing here, do not ever analyze malware on production systems. So just good thought to definitely heed that advice there. All right, so what is malware analysis? Can anyone tell me what malware analysis is? Anybody? Analyzing malware. Let's see. Well, kind of, yeah. So I had the analysis of malware, right? No. But basically, it's reverse engineering. We have this malware, and we are trying to figure out how it works. What is it doing? Does anybody know why we want to do that? What? Catch the bad guys. Yeah, it's all about the bad guys, right? What? Anything? To defeat it. What? Figure out indicators. Oh my God. Okay. Ooh. Indicators. We're going to start IOC and cyber kill chain, right? And metrics, dashboards, pane of glass, cyber. All right. So basically breaking this down. So in doing malware analysis, it's basically just this phased approach where you're first going to start out doing some triage. So we get the malware. These are the things that you're just going to do first and foremost. Next is some sort of dynamic analysis, which I'm going to talk about later. And lastly, the really hard stuff, which is static analysis, where you actually decompile the code and you look at the assembly. Now, a person that I respect tons and tons and tons in this field is Lenny Zeltser. He kind of does the same thing, but he breaks it down into 4 steps. I sort of merged the fully automated analysis and the static properties analysis into this triage step, but basically the same thing. All right, so we talked about that. So does anybody know what triage is? Sorting. Anybody else? Any thought? An initial assessment, yeah. Yeah, sorting by severity and treating the worst. All awesome. Let's see. Oh, I didn't have a funny one there, but anyway. But I mean, just breaking down. This is the quickie. I mean, all those answers were absolutely right. This is the way that I said it. Just quickie analysis to understand as much as possible about the malware. So the goals here are to really gain a gist of what the malware is and what it's gonna do. Now, some of the kind of substeps there is determine its basic runtime properties. So a method of how we would do that is using automated analysis. See if others found it, right? So we all know that. So we get a hash, and what do we do with that hash? Virus total, right? I heard somebody, hey, I'm going to load it up to virus total, and there's tons of other sites that. Did any other sites that I should pump up? What? Threat Expert. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of great sites. The favorite thing that I like to do? Google. I just put the hash into Google, and usually works great. So look at analyze the file properties, such as and there we're talking about the PE properties. So, and I mentioned like the type of file that it is, the libraries that it's importing, but there's a whole bunch of other things that you can really do there. And then last but not least is strings, right? Strings is awesome. You just take an executable, You run strings on it, and it basically chunks out any readable text. And you can learn a lot just by running strings. All right. Is that enough? No? So one guy's shaking his head. Do you think we should stop there? Are we done? Yeah, well, she read my interest. No, we need to go deeper. Okay. So this is the dream within the dream, right? Okay, so the next step is dynamic analysis. Okay. Can anybody give me a smart-ass answer of what dynamic analysis is? No, I said smart-ass. Come on. Like, analyzing things dynamically. Okay. All right. Analyze it while running. All right. So I didn't have a funny one here, but it's basically just executing the malware and watching what it does, right? This stuff is very complicated. Okay, so the goals here are just to get an understanding of how the malware acts. And some things that we're going to be looking at, or that we want to look at there, are host changes. And these are the big ones. Did anything did the registry change? Did keys get added, deleted? Did new registry entries get added? Same thing with files. Were there any files that were added, removed, changed? And then also look at logs. There's tons of logs. You have your purely things that are defined as logs that are in most computers, but then there's a lot of other things that you can derive logs from that I'm going to talk about. Next is to uncover runtime properties. So this is the malware is running, and so you can see what it's changing on the host, but you can also see the processes that are being started up, and then also maybe doing some memory analysis there too. So you can go in using tools like volatility and actually pull stuff out, and that's another thing that we're going to cover too. And then the last one is reveal network activity. So we know all these things, and then now we're going to see, we're basically looking at any TCP, UDP traffic, and then at the application level, most of the stuff that we're going to be seeing are DNS followed by HTTP or HTTPS. And there's some other neat, you could see SMTP or whatever. So there's a lot of other things that you could see at the application level there. So dynamic analysis, it's pretty simple. We establish a baseline environment. We have a set of tools that we're running in the background that monitors those things that we talked about on the previous slide. So we start those up. We execute the malware, and we watch our monitoring tools. And it's sort of an art to know when to stop, but at some point in time, you kill the malware that's running, you stop all your tools, and then you analyze the difference of, the differences between, that base system and what the system looks like now, and anything that you learned along the way. Yes? All right, cool. I'm done. No. Is that enough, right? No. You got to go deeper. How deep do we want to go? Not that deep, man. I don't know. All right. So the next layer that we talked about is static analysis, right? So can anyone tell me what static analysis is beyond what, I basically just gave you the answer. So someone here should at least know. What's static analysis? What? Disassembly, yep. Code inspection? Yeah, kind of, yeah. What? The malware's not running, exactly, yeah. So the way I kind of put it is, this gentleman said here, is we're basically going to disassemble the malware down to its basic computer instructions. Assembly. Has anyone here worked with assembly previously? What are your wow, okay. What are your basic assembly, or what are your favorite assembly instructions here? No hop, okay. What? All right, that's good. So the goals here are we're going to reverse engineer this to figure out exactly what it does. So we're basically going to take, and what I'm, basically saying here is, we write code, right, in C or whatever, and we compile it, and we get stuff that looks like that over on the right-hand side. It's very easy to do that, but a lot of times it's really hard to go backwards. And so essentially what we're doing is we disassemble the malware, and we end up with stuff that looks on the right. And we're trying to figure out what that malware is doing just by looking at its static properties. And we're trying to kind of, at least in our mind, create something like that on the left-hand side. Now, there's a lot of people, I go to a lot of talks, and, cats get all the freaking attention, right? Who's a cat lover here? Cats? Okay, dog lovers. Oh, yeah, this is my audience, all right? I love you guys, man. All right. I put little puppy pictures in there. All right, so the next area of the talk that I want to touch on is, so we kind of know a little bit about what malware analysis is, the parts that it breaks down to, and just at a high level what we need to do there. The next thing that we want to focus on is, we really need to have an environment, a lab set up so that we can do this. And so what I'm going to touch on in the next few slides are, the different types of platforms, virtual and physical, and also the different options. So there's automated. You can do things, all your malware analysis on a single box. But there may be times where you'll need another box too to maybe act as a server or a gateway. So first thing is the platform. So I think pretty much everybody knows this. You can do things virtually using things like VMware, VirtualBox, whatever. Any other flavors of VM products that people like? Any hardcores and any, what? Zen, okay. How do you say that? QMU, okay. That's, all right, too complicated for me. What? Okay, libvirt. Wow, okay. So there's, and then we also have things that we can do at the physical layer. So a lot of times when you're doing malware analysis, you will start out just doing things virtually. And it's just awesome because you can set up operating systems, you can snapshot them, you can run the malware, and then you can just revert back to that snapshot. So it's great. The only downsides, though, is that a lot of the really good malware knows what to look for in virtual, or it knows the keys to look for in the operating system to detect whether it's running in a virtual environment or not. So, Redfield? Blue pill. Oh, yes. I like the blue pill. All right. Exactly. So, now the interesting thing to contemplate there as we move forward, or as our, like we started out having these big clients, and then, we started out with mainframes, right? So we had these very thin clients, and then we went to thick clients, and then a few years ago, Oracle said that the network is the operating system, right? Right, and then, I don't know. So now we're just bouncing back and forth. But what's the term here that they use? It's VDI. Yeah, so virtual desktops, basically. So, so maybe it's not such a bad thing, because if your system gets infected with malware, it says, oh, I'm running in a virtual machine. I'm going to kill myself. So, it could work in our favor too. But if it does, if you're working in your sandbox, and it detects that, then the obvious next step is to go back to a physical box. Now, it's, obviously VM detection isn't possible because you're running on a VM, right? But it's also resource intensive. This is a separate box. It's a little bit like it's so easy to just snap back, but with a physical box, maybe you have like reinstall the operating system, or if you're using something like Ghost or whatever, you could set that up to make it easier. But it's definitely a lot more resource intensive. Like if you maybe need to set up some sort of a labs, another machine that acts as a gateway. So, that's more stuff you have to do there. So the options here, and so obviously the way I'm sort of pushing here is to go the way of doing a virtual environment, at least to start out. And then if you see malware is detecting that and changing its behavior based on your virtual system, then you can do the physical box. But regardless of the environment that you're in, there's basically 3 different options. So there's automated, and so these are great. I'm going to talk about Cuckoo Box. It's open source one, and there's a bunch of other ones there too. But they do triage analysis, so they do all that. And then they emulate, the user clicking on things and opening up emails and running things, right? And then it just watches all that activity that goes on, changes to the file system, the registry, network type stuff, process type stuff, collects all that and gives it back to you. So it's great because it does a lot of that stuff. You just submit the file to it, you let it run, and then you get this stuff back, or you get a basic quick analysis back. So the other option is doing everything on a single box. So you basically have this environment set up, and you have all your tools set up to monitor that. And then you trick it. You use certain tools to trick it so that the malware thinks it's on a network when it really isn't. And so you run it, but you're basically watching the malware, and everything's being done on this single box. Now, as I mentioned there's the potential risk of the malware realizing this and sabotaging the data that your analysis tools are collecting. So to mitigate that, you can at least get some clean data by having another box that's acting as a gateway. So any network type stuff you can pull off. So you can do things like, just doing basic port scans, network traffic. So there's a lot of just basic things that you can do there. So those are your different options. Another, in terms maybe diving a little deeper in automated analysis, there's several awesome tools that you can use. So if you just want to get started in malware analysis, find some malware, which I'll show you, and submit it to these sites and look what they bring back and try to understand. So that's an awesome way to get started. So malware.com is made and maintained by the same guys that do Cuckoo Sandbox. So it's basically Cuckoo Sandbox online. So it's awesome. And if you look closely, it says whenever you submit stuff, you select file, you select it, you upload it, and there's a little checkbox that says share this sample. So most sites, whenever you use them, like Norman Sandbox, GFI, Anubis, Threat Expert, they all, they'll use anything that you submit to them to further their research. So this is kind of nice that we can upload stuff and that they're not going to share it with the potential adversary, right? So obviously this can work. Using these online sites can work when you're just starting out, when you're just trying to learn, right? But if you are working for a large corporation, I don't know, Google or Microsoft or whoever, I don't think their management and leadership staff, their legal team, their whoever, right? I don't think they would appreciate you uploading malware that you found on their network to these sites. So the other option is to, those large companies can purchase products made by some of these same companies here that they basically do the same thing, but it's in-house, and any malware that's submitted to it doesn't get shared with anyone else. So there's commercial products. There's the open source tool, which is Cuckoo Sandbox. Has anyone used Cuckoo here? Okay, yeah, I love it. And even at a minimum, like if you can't get all this stuff set up, like what's, basic malware analysis 101 is basically create your own like virus total type thing. So at least, that's at a minimum, you could do something like that. So looking a little bit, and I talked about Cuckoo and maybe diving a little deeper there, but this slide just basically talks about all the things that whenever you run malware on Cuckoo Sandbox, what it tracks. So it captures data associated with API calls, all the network traffic, screenshots, so you can actually go in and you can see the malware actually running, like if it's starting processes or opening a command window. Files, so any files that were added, deleted, or modified. And also assembly instructions, so it'll basically capture all that, a trace of that too. Cuckoo Sandbox, it's getting easier, but it can be a little frustrating to set up. So, but it's definitely worth the, if you're really good, you probably do it in like a half hour, but it's definitely worth it. Like if it's your first time and you're familiar with Linux, I don't know, you could probably do it in like 2-3 hours. So if you just head down and do it. So this is what Cuckoo looks like. So there's usually, so how the architecture is, it's usually running, so you have a host operating system, and then you have a virtual guest, which in this case is Windows XP. And you submit stuff. I don't know if it's showing here, but so there's several ways to submit the malware to this. It runs in the Windows XP box, and then you get your output through here. And you can either look at the output comes usually in several different formats. They have like you can start some local web servers, like a local mini web server, and you can look at like HTML reports, and it looks somewhat like if you would go to malware.com and you would look at their results. It looks basically like that. So lots of love for Cuckoo, right? So the next thing is, so that's automated, right? And now so the next evolution here was with the single box. And so this is basically where we're going to start looking at dynamic analysis, right? So you're going to start with your base unpatched Windows XP Service Pack 2 or Service Pack 3. I have some links here where you may be able to find stuff. But essentially, it's like, well, where do I get this, right? Especially if I'm a new guy, right? And I don't want to pay the hundreds of dollars to get a Windows XP license that's like 10 years old, right? But, if you're willing to pay for it, there's eBay, Newegg, whatever. So you can go to the sites like that. But what's pretty awesome, though, is now you can't get Windows XP, unfortunately. But current and last year, Windows, previously there was it's like the MSDN subscription, TechNet, yeah. So that was fairly inexpensive, and you would have basically free use of all their software for a few hundred bucks. Okay. Yeah, just the basic stuff, right? But it was a great deal, right? But now what they did is they transitioned from, well, we have these evals, so we don't need the TechNet, right? So what you can essentially do is go get evals of any of these products. And usually by the first month, they'll nag you to register it. But overall, they last 90 days, which, to install an operating system, even Windows 7 or 8 on, in a virtual environment, I just did it. It takes 15 minutes. So basically, every 90 days, you spend 15 minutes and reset up your stuff. So the evals are a great place to start. They do kind of hide them because I've found them and I documented them. And then later I wanted to go back to it and I was like, oh, I'll just Google it, and I couldn't find it. And so definitely write these down because Google doesn't index them. The other thing that you may want to look at is, I think Microsoft does it, is there's the modern IE. And essentially what this is it gives people, it gives web designers and developers access to browsers that are only accessible on Windows XP. So I guess IE 6, 7, whatever, right? But once again, so you can get access to Windows XP, and once again, these trials or evals, if you want to call them that, are good for 90 days. The last option, right, is AWS, right? So you can spin up your own machines in, this is Amazon here, right? You can use the cloud. Oh, that's a buzzword I forgot to use. Drink. All right. The only disadvantage there is that they are servers. They usually don't have workstation stuff, but it's an option. Or you can just shell out the cash and buy. You can start out with a Windows 7 or Windows 8 eval, and just when the expiration comes up, if you find you're really liking it, then you can put up the I don't know, how much does a Windows 7, I haven't bought one, but a few $100 or something? 400? What? Yeah. Enterprise? Okay, yeah, so about $100, but so, it's usable. But if you don't want to shell out $100 up front, you have 90 days just to try it out, right? So it's great. So we get our basic operating system stood up. And, oh, did you have a question, sir? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so previous operating systems that your IT maybe, what? 1 minute? 10 minutes? I thought I had an hour. Okay, so, oh, this is hilarious. I thought it was 50 minutes or something. Yeah, what's up? Is it really? It was 30 minutes? Oh, okay, all right, cool. Okay, I see. Yeah, that's illegal. Come on. You know what? Speaking of that, what was it? My son did this. He's 9, right? And he did this Invent It program for summer camp, right? So one of the things they did is they took apart old desktops, right? I'm thinking, awesome. So the one day I come home, I'm searching through stuff on my desk, and I see all these Windows XP disks, Windows 7 disk, and I'm like, where'd these come from? So I asked him, and he said, oh, well, they were sitting there, and I thought you would like them. And I was like, oh. You are awesome. With keys and everything. It was awesome. So, but anyway, I digress. So we have our basic operating system stood up, right? And so these are just some of the tools that you want to put on. So there's strings, and there's several companies that put out Windows strings tools. And there's BE Studio, which kind of does a little bit of strings too, but it also does a lot of just basic analysis type stuff, static analysis. So that's a tool that a lot of folks use. And also File Insight. So you definitely need a hex editor, and there's lots of ones out there. A lot of the good ones you end up having to pay for, but just to start out with, this one by McAfee, it's a little older. And the cool thing, though, is that it was specifically designed for malware analysis. So these are just some suggestions, but if you have like your favorite hex editor that you would like to use, then by all means use what works. So some other things that you would want to put on this single box that you would be doing analysis on are some of the sys internals tools. So we got process monitor, which process monitor is just awesome. You can set it up to monitor specific things. You can filter all the junk that you don't care about out. It's just awesome. Definitely a tool to learn. And also Process Explorer, which is like Task Manager, but awesome. Okay? It just, there's lots of cool things you can do with it. And of course, Wireshark, right? And if you're going to use Wireshark, you're going to get stuck doing WinPCAP too. And also RedShot, I really like. And although it says RedShot, and you're thinking like, oh, it's going to track. So it's basically like, hey, I'm going to take a snapshot of the picture of the registry before, run a bunch of stuff, take a snapshot afterwards, and it shows you the diffs. There's actually an option there so that you can monitor file changes too. So you said, oh, I want to so you check that. And the files that you want to monitor, you just do C:// and it monitors all the file changes. So I got some links to that there. Some other things that you would want to install on this box for doing dynamic analysis or TCP view, just so that you can get so that you can watch just different network connections that are going in. And also there's a tool called FakeNet. So this is the thing that if the malware requires internet to work, or in order to basically like do C2, or just to indicate that, hey, I'm on a network and I can do stuff now. So there's a cool tool that was called FakeNet. And so really awesome. It basically starts up all these fake lists, like it changes your local host files, and then it starts up all these listeners for like DNS, HTTP, SSL. And it basically acts as it listens for stuff, and then it kind of makes its best guess to kind of send stuff back. So it's a pretty cool tool. And then the next thing is static analysis. So probably want to do some static analysis type tools to put on your box there. So obviously, there's IDA Pro, so you can get the free version. But if you want to stay low cost and you don't want to get pestered to upgrade, and you just start out with Ollie Debug. And one of the cool things too is the Ollie Dump plugin, because a lot of times if you're analyzing malware and you're looking at it statically and you're like, I don't know what it's doing. It's all like I scan it, I run strings on it, and it looks just like garbage, right? So what you can do is you can start up the malware, attach it to the debugger, and then basically pause it, put a break in, and then extract the actual malware out of memory in its, say, decrypted state. So some cool stuff there. And then there's tons of tools out there. Like if you go to Lenny Zell's site, he has a link to them, but there are definitely for, like if you're looking at PDFs or Flash or Office files, there's tons of tools out there that are specifically designed to work with those formats. And then these are just some other ideas of some good stuff that I heard of that you may want to check out. Like here's some of the other hex editors. Usually you have to pay for them, but forensics, and this is another thing too. When you're doing malware analysis, there's a whole nother layer that you can add to it, because you can run the malware, but then you can actually do forensics on that box too to even learn more. So depending how deep you want to go, right? All right. So basically, so you have this single box. It's on a secluded network, and I just have a note there. Just don't do host only, because theoretically malware could spread from your victim box to your host, and so you definitely want to set up like a separate network that isn't connected to your host there. If you need, and then these are just ways of, it's like, well, how do I get malware onto the box? So you can temporarily turn on networking to download stuff, turn it off, whatever. You can use media, like if you're in a physical environment and you're working with that, like actual workstations, things like CDs or USB keys. But at some point, you basically snapshot the VM. Depending on the type of malware you're analyzing, there would be custom tools like if it's a PDF exploit, then put a version of Reader, or if it's a Firefox exploit, then you would probably want to look at installing things like Firefox and stuff there too. So your whole thing's set up, you baseline it, you snapshot it, and then depending on what you want to do, because what a lot of people will do is they'll want to test a piece of malware, like, all right, well, does it work on XP Service Pack 1, Service Pack 2, Service Pack 3? And the cool thing about having everything done virtually is I can just, have Service Pack 1, and then I can update it to Service Pack 2, snapshot it, update it to Service Pack 3, snapshot it. And so, I really don't have to have entire installed operating systems. It's just these snapshots that are just the deltas between them. So usually you have your second box, and so these are situations where you can't do stuff on a single box. So you usually have this second box. You can call it like a fake gateway. So this is the second gateway for the target to connect to. It's basically, you could set up any server like Linux and just install the services that you need, right? The other thing is both your victim and this gateway probably want to use fixed IP, just a good recommendation. And then down on the bottom here, DNS, HTTP, IRC, but a bunch of other servers, right, that you could install there depending on the malware that you're looking at. And once again, there's a lot of cases where you'd have to do this if the malware is somehow sabotaging that single box that you're actually running the malware on. And then these are obviously like your network tools that you could put on this fake gateway. So Wireshark, Netcat, and Nmap. And if you want, you can snapshot it, and you can have different versions of that too. So one tool, has anyone heard of Remnux? So it's like reverse engineer malware, once again by Lenny Zelser. So this is something that he put out. It's ISO, so you can install it from scratch, or he has like a VMware version, so you can just download that, open up inside of a VMware product, and have access to it. A lot of like pre-installed things that are awesome. So you can put the malware on this Linux box, and if it's Windows malware, it doesn't really matter, right? So there's a lot of tools built into that distro that allow you to do some of that triage stuff, maybe some of that static analysis stuff. And from a dynamic analysis perspective, it has all the most common services built in. So if you need like a DNS server or IRC or whatever, it has all these basic services already in, and all you have to do is he gives you commands to start them up, and it's basically very easy. So definitely something to start out with. This is what Remnux looks like. And one of the things too, like a lot of questions that you get is like, all right, I'm going to do malware analysis. Like, where do I get malware, right? So, I mean, if you're just starting out, I mean, I love the book Practical Malware Analysis. You can go to their website and you can download all their labs, and so that's malware that you can work on there. It's probably mostly, it's malware, but it's it was with a book, so it's probably less benign than say real malware. Contagio Dump has been around for years and years and years, right? You can get stuff from there. Virus Share, you have to that's a newer site. You have to request an invite, but and also malware.com. So remember the malware.com, those are the same people that did Cuckoo Sandbox, right? So if somebody checks like, hey, I want to share my stuff, you can grab stuff there too. And then a new site that I've been tracking the past few months is malwaretrafficanalysis.net. Now he gets a lot of his stuff from malware.com, but he does some nice analysis there, breaks it down, and then he gives you links to, or they have all the malware that you can download for anything that he's looked at. So some great places to get started. Okay, I'm happy again, right? Okay, and then this is really quick. It's just the methodology, right? So this is my triage checklist, right? Because I'm in that world. We have to have checklists. Anyway, so it's pretty simple. Hey, I'm going to run it through some automated type service. It could be an external one, like some of the sites that I showed there, or it could be, your the commercial versions of those that are locally hosted. You can do your MD5 hash thing, right? So you can get the hash of the fileware, see if anyone's found it, right? You can determine, the real file type. So there's, you can just, you can look at the PE head, or you can look at file, and there's some other sort of tricks that you can do there. Analyze imports. So these are the libraries that the malware is importing, right? So you can look at things and be like, oh, this is like this super advanced calculator, but for some reason it's importing like a network library. It's like, that's interesting. So you can look for stuff like that, and obviously run strings, because strings rocks. And as long as it's not obfuscated too bad, you can clear most of stuff just by doing strings. Unpack if it is obfuscated. So there are standard, like if people just use this standard packer, then you can use the standard unpacker to just extract it up, clean it up. But if it's, they're using encryption or something like that, you can use that ollie dump trick or whatever. You just pull it out of memory. And then, like I said, there may be some specialized tools. But like a year or 2 years back, and it's still in development, there was this tool called Mastiff, which takes a lot of these tools, and it kind of does a lot of this stuff where you just submit the file to it. And then that's also part of the Remnux too. So you could play with that there. And then this is just a quick checklist for dynamic analysis. So we have our baseline. We start our apps, execute the malware, monitor the activities at some point, and we shut stuff down. And then we look at the differences between the beginning and the end. And then static analysis. Does anybody do static analysis? It's definitely a lot harder, right? So, just kind of just stare at it and stare at it some more. And then eventually, after a few years, you get really good at it. And you don't know why. More puppies. All right, where to learn more? So opensecuritytraining.info. This place is awesome. And they have this whole malware analysis curriculum here. But just to get started, you definitely want to, like these classes here, the intro to x86, reverse engineering, malware static analysis, and malware dynamic analysis. And there's some other stuff there too, like the lighter color stuff, that stuff that they're looking for content for. But a lot of these have, so I just kind of put quick links to them here, because it is sort of hard to find. They don't really have it linked that well. But so these are quick links to it. And then 3 out of 4 of them here, they actually have videos too. So it's like more than just slide reading. You can actually do the videos. They come with labs, A lot of great stuff there. Some other like security tube. They have some reverse engineering stuff that you might want to check out. I've the Hacker Academy. They have like a good reverse engineering. Now this is a commercial thing, and like I get a little kickback, but there's like a little deal there, and it helps me come to cons like this and stuff. So it's not like I'm making that much money on it. And then they have some other things there, but it's pretty cool because they have these videos that you can watch, and they actually have labs that you can download VMs and run stuff. So some cool things that you can do there, and there's a special deal package there that go towards my 2015 BSides Las Vegas travel. Right, Zelser.com, I mean, he's just awesome. So malware analysis toolkit, just basically start there and just follow the links, and you just learn so much. Certifications, right? All right. So, you know, Lenny works for SANS, and he does the GREM, so it's awesome if you can afford it. You know, there's EC Council has their version, right? There's probably some more out there. And then NIST, if you're in the government realm, you know, NIST has their standard documents that you can read at night before you go to bed. Yep. and then me, and then if anybody's interested, like tomorrow, maybe afternoon or whatever, like if you guys want to do like a workshop or something, I don't know if anyone would be interested in doing stuff like that, just out in the common area. So, okay, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, so we can just definitely, I mean, I can't promise, you know, because we're limited with bandwidth and stuff here, but, you know, that might be something that we can work with, right? So maybe like a few hours, but if you just follow me on Twitter or whatever, I'll just kind of put stuff out there. And then kind of like in the last but not least, this is just kind of like a little side project that I might be able to use tomorrow, but Cuckoo Sandbox can be sort of a pain to set up. So what I started doing was, hey, well, I'm going to create this Cuckoo, like I'm going to get a Ubuntu VM, and I'm going to set up Cuckoo for it, and I'm going to put like a Windows eval version, and I'm going to set it all up, and it's like this self-enclosed thing that you could just run. So hopefully I'll have some, you know, I guess like literally version, like I'm like, last week I'm like, hey, this would be a great idea. Oh, and I have to work like 60 hours too, but all right, I'm going to try to swing this. And then I have some ideas, like some really cool stuff that you could do. So it could be more than just Cuckoo. You could do additional snapshots and have different snapshots that focus on doing, you know, the automated analysis and also doing some of the dynamic analysis too. So it runs a little slow. It's about 20 gig right now, so got to figure out how I'm going to distribute that. Anyway, so this is my conclusion slide. Anyway, so I'm not going to really talk to anything about that. So the presentation isn't posted yet, but that's where it's going to be. So please don't anybody take that that bit.ly link, please. That's me on Twitter. If you need to contact me, there's like through my website a contact form, or it's basically just Grecs at novainfosec.com. And the Hacker Academy thing, Grecs Hacker Deal, if you're interested in doing stuff like that. And fortunately, I don't need any of this. Did anybody see this? Holy crap. Anyway, I probably don't have time for questions, but we can chat out there. Anyway, thank you.